Claim that. Yeah.
Rồi chồng. Come up.
What's going on here? You need to be ours in there.
Yeah,
Can you hear now?
metal you were talking about.
Yeah. I can hear you.
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everybody, in Zoom. To make sure that we don't get any feedback.
Look at those old cars.
Yeah,
I love
1968
the old
says, I go back a ways. So the train was getting into Chicago, this British bus was having trouble getting into Chicago.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Interesting anecdote, we had a friend in Chicago who was giving herself a pub crawl party. So we're supposed to meet outside a particular bar. And at a certain time, go out front and get into this British bus. She'd take us to the next bar that she had lined up for us. So we went to several bars and the driver got screwed up and he tried to drive under L tracks, L trains, and elevated trains go all around the city. And we started to see, oh my God, he's taking the wrong turn. He's trying to get into the L tracks.
We were on the top of the
And
bus.
we were on the top floor in the front. Oh, here it comes. He's going to stop and he's not going to stop. So it hit the front of the bus and started peeling the top of the bus off. And we hit the floor. We're sprinkled with broken glass. Back into, of course, we went down, but we didn't want to come up to see. We thought all of your heads would be cut off. But we survived fine, thank you. So if you know Chicago, you know Mayor Richard J. Daley. He was the last of the big city bosses. He ran the city with a tight club. He was mayor for 22 years. He has absolute power. I apologize for the dust spots. So if you wanted anything done, you had to know who you could pay. Bribes, fraud, corruption, rampant, even the police department everywhere. And he was very interested in keeping the city segregated. Pierre DeVisi, a noted urbanologist, said Chicago was the most segregated big city in the country. And he was hopeful in getting passage of expressways and toll roads and for building O'Hare Field. And they kind of kept black people one side and white people on the other side. And had to move those people out of the way. So we didn't want them moving into white neighborhoods. So they built high rises, housing projects to put all these people in, undesirable people. So they were very tall and you stack people up. It's like tests where you put rats in a box, they get bad and chew each other up and kill each other. So the bad effects from that decision. He was very tolerant of organized crime. The outfit it was called was something else that was deteriorating, the West Side Ghetto, or ghetto's North Side, or no, pardon me, West Side and South Side. And so he let the outfit bomb people and trying to control gambling. Very successfully. And then after one of his 5 elections, that's his wife was and the treasurer to the right. He lived kind of unostentatiously in a little Irish enclave called Back at the Yards or Bridgeport. But people who worked for him made lots of money. He was noted to be very fumbling when he sounded like the common man. And union people loved him. God bless Mayor Daley. But when he spoke, you'd think, oh, this guy is not very well versed in use of the language. And I worked in City Hall at a desk in the press room. And so he'd have press conferences and then he'd have quick press conferences in the hallway. And so we'd all scramble out and TV cameras would be showing and the guys with the broadcast media would have little tape recorders, they tape them. And he was talking about how this is Chicago, is South Side Irish. Chicago is a great city. It's good for everybody. It's good for the Irish. It's good for the Poles. It's good for the Jews. And as for our friends of the Negro persuasion. So unguarded, but powerful. So you think of Chicago alderman, what's a Chicago alderman look like? 50 wards, and this was one of them. And there were maybe 5, they were all, almost all Democrats. There were 5 who were kind of independent. And if any of the independent aldermen tried to go on a tirade and criticize Daley, he kind of go like this. And there was a sound engineer in the sound room way in the back up high, and they cut off the microphone. So end of that. So this is Alderman Jam Road. I like this comb over. I'm gonna try that just in about 6 years. I'm gonna get a pinky ring. Maybe not. Oh, man. I think something changed. Okay. Now, in 1936, it was Nazi Germany. They were going to host the Olympics. And the US was going to send Olympics teams over there. And 2 guys in the Olympics team were Jewish. So the Olympics people said, we can't send Jews over there. Hitler says, no Jews. So instead, they sent 2 black guys. They happen to be the fastest guys in the world. So Jesse Owens took gold, and Ralph Metcalf, this guy, took silver. And they were obviously non-Aryan and non-Nazi. Hitler was there, and he was just livid and stormed away. Ralph Metcalf, he became an alderman and later a congressman. He was an honorable guy. Jesse Jackson, anybody old enough to remember Jesse Jackson? Operation Push. So I met him a bunch of times and interviewed him. He was always at least 2 hours late for an interview. And he ran for president, and maybe that's why. So these are 2 of the independent aldermen. A.A. Sammy Rayner is on the left. His family had a very big, very successful funeral home. Anybody got buried from A.A. Sammy Rayner's funeral. And I only put this picture in because memories came flooding back. He took me to lunch one time and started talking intimately about his work. He said, dead people turn me on. I've never heard anybody say dead people turn him on. So this was another alderman after Mayor Richard J. Daley. This was Harold Washington. He was a good Washington, affable guy. We had him over to our house for an election rally one night. Nice guy. He got heckled by a couple of white aldermen in city council, but he held up well. This was an Adlai Stevenson election night in about 1970. So these are campaign workers waiting for election results. This is how it looked in 1970. No cell phones. Remember rabbit ears? They had a TV to try to see how the election results were coming in for the candidate Adlai Stevenson. So you remember this guy?
Muhammad Ali.
Looked like a butterfly, singing like a bee.
Yeah.
So I interviewed him. I watched him work out. He lived down the street from us. He lived in Hyde Park, Kenwood. Fascinating neighborhood. I'll give you a whole spiel about that sometime. It was Woodlawn Avenue was a street filled with mansions dating back to about 1890. And he was a neighbor down the street. And when he'd be out in his front yard, people said, oh my God, it's the champ. Stop. Give me a piece of paper. And we'll want to get the sort of back up traffic for blocks. People trying to get signatures from him. We got into his house one time. It was a house show. And he had torn out a lot of walls from his 1890 mansion. And he built a huge bedroom. He had an enormous bed on a pedestal about this high. So he had a very much of a showroom bedroom, which I'm sure he took advantage before the Parkinson's disease set in. A sweaty champ. So 1968, 1970, 71, lots of things going on. The outfit were burning places down on the west side of the ghetto, and the ERA trying to get passed. And there were, of course, anti-war rally. Everybody was protesting. And the populace was really divided. You had the hippies, the hip people, and the straight people, and they hated each other, and the cops hated the hippie people. So it led to a lot of confrontations, a lot of heads got bashed. Big scene. Who's this?
Carol, if you turn down the volume on your computer,
I think it's
Not bad.
coming out of that.
It's coming out of that, and I've turned the volume down on that one too, and I can't figure out where it's coming from.
I can't find her name, but she's with the National Organization of Women. You remember, that included Gloria Steinem, Shirley Chisholm. It was a big deal. So everybody was protesting everything else. This is a different parade. Africans, Americans against racism. So this, I sold this for a book jacket someplace. Most of these have been printed somewhere. Sure. So the guy in the front, anti-war, and there were indictments of Black Panthers. Black Panthers were very much in the news. Some got really famous. So the guy in front had his Che Guevara costume on. And as there were hippies versus straight people, these are the straight people. And we see those bumper stickers yet today, America, love it or leave it. So this was an anti-war rally, a parade down the street. They were very disapproving, as you can see. There were cops everywhere. And, you know, a lot of cops in Chicago. This guy was looking for a fight. He hated the hippies who were protesting the war. And those guys with him were just thinking, who can we go and beat up? Trust me, I know these things. And there was a lot of police brutality, as I said. And this is one victim got beat up by the cops. There was one guy who was especially famous for beating up Black people, whose name I can't call them now, but everybody talked about he'd take Black people into the police station, handcuff them to radiator pipes, and their skin would get burned. And he didn't get indicted until he was in his 70s, and finally got sent to jail for his injustices. But he had prostate cancer and died shortly afterwards. So this is the anti-war parade. It's supposed to look like a skull. We were in Vietnam, and they kept increasing the number of people they had to enlist. And people were dying, everybody knew. People who got drafted and were dying. So police presence everywhere. That's kind of a paper mache.
Uncle Sam.
Yeah, Uncle Sam, yeah. This is supposed to be a war machine. The truck broke down, so they had to end up pushing the war machine.
Oh my goodness.
This guy was, I like the face. I just intersperse a lot of faces that I like here.
Intent.
So this is another adjoining street. Cops everywhere you can see. It's a looming presence. If you need them, it's nice to have. There was a bumper sticker. You need a cop, call a hippie. So another face that I thought was interesting. So as I say, there were demonstrations about everything. And there was an Iranian group who were protesting the Savak, the secret police of the Iranian Shah. And there were lots of signs stacked up, and they were trying to get everybody who wanted a sign, give a sign, and walk around in a circle and help us protest. So these kids were just in the neighborhood. Hey, what the hey? We'll pick up a sign and walk around. They didn't know the Shah of Iran from the pepper shaker, but they just say, pick up a sign, we'll walk around, it'll be fun. So there's a big Indian enclave in one of the neighborhoods. There were 77 neighborhoods in Chicago. On the other side, there was uptown, a lot of Indians were treated badly, they didn't have anything. And so they took over a Nike missile site. There were a couple of Nike missile sites coming down the lakefront. This is the Belmont Harbor. So they broke into it and it was kind of actually like a silo into the ground. They put ladders in, it got down into the bowels of it. And had news people come out, show what they were doing. So it's a fun day for a kid. And they had a generator, they could hook up a TV. So people slept there for a couple of days till they got hauled out. Interesting, on the TV, the screen says summer camp. So this is another protest. A lot of Black Panthers were arrested for different protests, thrown in jail for long periods of time. This was the guy kind of running that particular protest. And this was Bobby Seale. He made white people tremble at that time, 68. And he was the chairman of the Black Panther Party. And he talked about using violence to end racism or to fight racism. People, holy crap, they're coming up. This is a little out of focus, but a good gesture. It was good at gesturing. This was at a very large Black church, huge crowd. He had his guards next to him. Black Panthers are very paranoid, then justifiably so. The crowd really loved listening to him. He was a fascinating speaker. And it was a big deal, and they handed out food. Black Panthers were actually a good group, benefactors of lots of programs. Passing out bags of food. I think the guy on the left is Bobby Rush. He was Minister of Information for the Black Panthers, and he became a congressman in our district, right, Bob? And of course, big crowd, big Black church. Of course, there's going to be music. And so singers singing gospel. This guy sang. And they had sickle cell anemia tests. Sickle cell was a trait that was kind of common in Black people that it caused all kinds of physical problems. So you prick your finger and do a test for you. And the little girl in the middle was very concerned about the baby in the mother's arms. Meanwhile, out on the street, the Howard Person guy is making a sale here. One was reaching into a purse, buying a pamphlet or something. This is Harold Bell, another Black Panther. And he's a good speaker too. And this is another Black Panther. No, was he a devil's disciple? I can't remember who he was with. But I can't find it. You don't care. So this was Fred Hampton. He was chairman of the Illinois Party. He was a good speaker and big crowd. He was a Black Panther. He didn't fare so well. Cops hated him. Mayor Daley hated him. And all night white people hated him. And shortly after this was taken, Edward V. Hanrahan, the state's attorney, got together a bunch of special police and they raided his apartment at night with guns blasting, and they killed him and Mark Clark, another Panther, and this guy's wife. Baby survived, but poor guy.
How were you treated being a white photographer in a crowd like
Good
that?
question. Well, I look like a hippie, so, Black people, oh, he's a radical, he's okay. But for a lot of white people, it was okay. I had a lot of stories to tell at parties as a white guy who worked for the Black paper. And I got spat upon, but I got admired. A lot of reactions, especially working at the city hall in the press room. Some guys liked me, some didn't. And asked that question, what the hell are you doing here? But it's different from day publications. I needed to change. Playboy One of the Year pageant. I got sent here by the Chicago Daily Defender because there was a black bunny up for a prize. So does this look archaic or what?
Panther, she gets many calls on.
Oh, well.
No rackets.
So that's what feminine used to look like.
Yeah.
So that's Hugh Hefner. On the left. And so I called him he said, get out of here, stupid. So it wasn't a good relationship. Well, that's Leroy Neiman on the right. He was an artist and illustrator, did a lot of illustrations for for Playboy. I don't know why they're looking, I don't know who she was, somebody beautiful.
With big hair.
She made a couple of nights. She steal your hair.
She's still my hair. That's what happened to her, yeah. So I was in Playboy once. I had a photographer friend who did an illustration for an Ellery Queen article in Playboy. And so he said, wear your hippie suit, bring a black hippie friend. And he used a very shiny metal plate. It was a ferrotyping plate, if you know what that is. And he curved it and took pictures of us, a billion of them reflected in this plate. So the one that he liked most that was edited or it was used in Playboy, look, you couldn't tell that I was there. I was kind of a smear. The other guy looked great. So I never got closer.
Did somebody in the chat indicated that is John Burge the cop you were thinking of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. John Burge was.
There was a
He was-
Playboy club in Chicago.
Yeah.
That was
Did you ask for that assignment?
No, Lacey, hey, Lacey.
I would have.
I got some of the choice assignments. I don't know. Excuse me. So this was just a shot with light kind of making colas in the lens, and I liked it. She was beautiful. I don't know, movie or what, everybody was beautiful and famous there. And this was one of the musicians, a group called Osmosis. This is a view of them from a balcony. Now, the best musical performance of the night, tiptoeing through the tulips. My father-in-law gave me a gift subscription to Playboy for a few years. The price went up and he couldn't anymore. And it was very slick publication, had very good articles, but it wasn't well made. Every day you open it up about the middle, one of the pages would flop open. So you'd close it, get your stapler out and close it up, and then turn the page and get on with your SART article, SART article, whatever you're reading. He died at the age of about 64, and he was singing Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Miss Vicky, his wife, was standing right there next to me, and she was just delighted. I can hear him now. So this was Al Saladin. A lot of people kind of said, I'm a community organizer and I want to get famous, so interview me and show my picture everywhere. So he's one of those kind of opportunists. This guy was a newspaper salesman. He had a little place where he sold newspaper. This is quite near City Hall. And he's got a pocket full of grain. You see the pigeons getting into his pants pocket. Mahalia Jackson, remember her? You talk about soul music. You're talking about Mahalia Jackson. She was singing at the funeral for a famous congressman. So just walking down the street in this little, they call it the American Marine Cadet Corps. And I don't know how this guy started, but he thought he was doing these kids a service, teach them a little discipline, give them little uniforms to dress up with, marching them down the street. And here one guy breaks ranks, turns around. Lost his discipline whatsoever. So this was a St. Patrick's Day parade. Guy had his pet goose. I don't never seen anybody bring a goose to a St. Patrick's Day parade.
There you go, John, what you can do with your new chicken.
Yeah.
Lovely chicken. There was a guy in Chicago named Chicken Charlie. I never saw, but every other photographer in Chicago took pictures with Chicken Charlie. He had a chicken on his head all the time.
Oh,
There you go, John.
You know.
So this was a free soup program sponsored by the Process Church. They came and went. This couple in England, kind of offshoots of Scientology, thought they'd start their own program in the US. So they loaded up their truck with food, with soup and sandwiches, and came to this Skid Row in one of our slums. And Pastor, so you see behind the Working Men's Palace Hotel, the Star, this was lined with flop houses. So every place, big businesses, stores, hotels were turned into flop houses. And one night I was walking down the street by myself, and a guy hit me up for some change. And so I talked to him, I like talking to him, so I give him some money for a bottle of wine. Kept talking to him. He said, "Geez, I'm tired. Could you loan me a couple of bucks for a flop and a flop?" I said, "Oh, sure, but I gotta come in and see him." So I went in with him and went up to his end of Jesus to describe it. There were people who chewed tobacco and spit it on the floor. And I remember a Chinese guy ran it and he had to clean up the spittoon. He had the kind of garden glove on, a cloth glove, and he reached down to pick up this spittoon. It looked like kind of a dog dish. It was spilling over. Oh, it was filthy, and there's a couple of chairs in it. They were all threadbare. So I went up to his room, and it was about 6 by 8. You could barely get a little bed in there. They'd made these ersatz walls covered with about this high, with chicken wire. And there was one bathroom at the end of the hall. You could hear people gagging and people passing out. So for $2, what do you want? So
The cheap wine.
these are the Process Church guys passing out soup. These guys at Skid Row, these were desperate people and grateful for a free lunch. That was untidy, food spilled on his chest. Bachelor quarters side in the back, all these flop houses. This guy was flamboyantly gay. He just pranced around most flamboyant way. He had a fresh bottle of booze. This is the kind of guy I know anecdotally who could take you back in the alley and perform intimate acts with you orally if you give him $5, $3, a buck, or for fun, whatever he felt like at the time.
About what year was this?
1970, 71. This is an ambassador from Ghana, just stuck an interesting face in there. I can't remember his name. So this is a guy at a different street corner, just standing there with an interesting face, wondering what he was thinking. I love steel drums, you know, the Caribbean. They cut the ends off oil drums and put it over fire and make it soft and bend little facets in it. So it's a tone with each little area. So I don't know how I found this guy, but he had a little calypso band and played a steel drum that he made. So I made an appointment and I wanted to interview him, take pictures. So I told him that they're going to practice in somebody's basement. This is him as they were practicing. Lord Smiley is his name. And he played Germany and England, all kinds of places. He had 11 people in his Calyptones band. Balanced this bottle in his head every night. He had to quit the drinking because it just got the better of him. So I had a singer. He was from Ocho Rios in Jamaica. Getting it on here. heartfelt singing. So, like I said, I love steel drums. And I was working at the Chicago Daily Defender. I'd go down and oversee the production of the paper. And there was a guy from Trinidad who was telling me about Carnival in Jamaica. You know, they invented Carnival, after which a Mardi Gras was patterned. And he operated a linotype machine, big clattering thing, and talked to me about steel drums and the steel drum bands in Trinidad. We went and visited one time for a carnival, and just more stories could be told. The singer was also a fire eater. So it's a multi-
It'll hurt your voice.
you don't see that much anymore. So this is, I've just got a couple of photos of these events. I couldn't find the rest. There was a contract buyers league group in Chicago. And one problem with Chicago, the neighborhoods are red lined. So if you try to go for a loan, you try to, sell property, buy property, everybody's got a red line district. So if you live in this red line, of course, all the slums are red line, you couldn't get a loan. You couldn't get insurance. So the guy who owns the house behind us had a contract loan. And so they give you the money, and if you missed one payment, they take your house out from under you. You had no equity. You missed a payment and they got your house. So sheriff's police, sent a special, Cook counties, yeah, sure. So they spent the squadron, probably 200 cops there to possess this guy's house, snowy, and they had this guy out in front. And so neighbors had taken this guy's possessions, good possessions, out of his house, took them to their houses for safe possession. And they threw everything else out onto the lawn, thinking, okay, the bank can have the house, but they won't take my possessions. This guy was just watching everything happening. So this was another situation in which I was trying to use the 2 1/4 camera. At 12 exposures, it's hard to change lenses. It's hard to focus on people. I saw guns being passed and forth in the crowd, but something's going to happen. So a standoff. More cops. They meant business. Oh, so how that ended. I'm missing a couple of pictures here. A shot was fired. A group of special police with special uniforms to the back door, guns drawn, to go into the house to secure it from the inside. So nobody dares go in there. And so what's going to happen now? So a shot was fired. And then those cops came walking out, like this, and people in the crowd cheered. They're calling it off. And so we went into the house. Turns out they had fired the shot from inside. You see how the glass was shattered, so that they could call it off and not throw these poor people out. So this is a guy having to work on his car. His child inside the car is not happy. Hurry up, Dad, hurry up. So this is a wheel series. This guy's got a wheel problem. These guys have a wheel problem. This is a cement truck that fell through a soft place in an overpass on the expressway.
Oh.
Went through and flipped over. What do you do with a cement truck full of cement? These guys are trying to figure it out. They finally got a truck there that could suck most of the cement out, but of course there's time limit. But that's another tire problem. So this guy's driving by this neighborhood. This guy was fixing bike tires. So I thought, that's a photo feature story. I took a series of pictures and wrote stories to go with them. And as I worked for the Chicago Daily Defender, I could make whole photo pages. So I do a series of photos, write a story, lay out the whole page write the headlines and the captions. And I became an editor for that whole weekend edition. And so I had total control of that whole page. Fixing these bikes for these boys and showed them how to fix things. They get a little mechanical knowledge. And then they wanted to show off. I spent a little time with these guys. So I don't know if he's provided these bikes, but a lot of kids with bikes. I think he just owned one of these stores, left the door open, and he could do this for the neighbors, so he did.
It's a good shot.
Uh-huh.
Wow,
Oh,
they're filled with joy.
Oh, boy.
Uh-huh.
So I was hanging around with a biker gang this day.
Yeah. Those handlebars called. The banana?
Mhm.
Yeah, banana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these guys, if you knew them, you'd like them, I'm sure. Shopping cart where they found a wheel, it's like a hot rod. Well, so took turns.
Peace.
So another wheel problem.
Oh, wow.
He got pulled into a parking lot, I think, to take a leak or something. Came back and his car was ablaze like this. Said, what happened? He didn't know. Walked away from the car. Luckily, he wasn't in the car at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
More wheels.
Oh, yeah. Three boys, one set of skate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and glad to share.
Back then.
This guy used to recycle junk and make little, they look like hatchbacks. He didn't say, no, these aren't for dope. These are for spearmint and for kitchen herbs and things.
Yeah.
And he had a little screen on a sieve alongside, and little containers full of things that you could dip through cinnamon and try them out. And so just another thing, it's an interesting guy, proof he had. But this is a whole different event. It's kind of an antique show, big guy, little dog. This has an interesting story. I got a job for a scholarly journal with the University of Chicago Press. And this was at the back of a stage, part of a back of a stage for a place where the jazz greats played. Satchmo, what's his name?
Saxophone?
I say,
Louis Armstrong?
Louis Armstrong, yeah, Earl Fatherhide, all those
Oh,
famous
yes.
people played in this venue. And then it eventually became a hardware store. It's still a little hardware store, and they're trying to sell housewares. But they made an office in front of a bunch of this backdrop. So it was really hard to get a shot of this little window, and about this far from the window to the back wall that'll lead in. I just got a cool pics camera, paid $1,000 for a 3 megapixel camera, so they were able to reach in, set up 2 flashes, and got that picture. If you notice, the guy's got 2 left hands. Just kind of show the wildness of the jazz spirit you get going. So being Chicago, you see this occasionally, people getting arrested. I don't know why this guy was being arrested. Plainclothes cops grabbed him, frisked him. And seemed like an indecent kind of frisking to me, but when you're getting arrested, you don't have a lot of rights. This I just threw in because I ran across it. This is Laurie Anderson. Remember, she was a performance artist.
Yeah.
And you might remember, Oh Superman, she sang, she had an act where she put a light in the back of her mouth, so the light would come through her mouth and her lips, and the rest of everything was black. So I loved Laurie Anderson. Doesn't fit. So there's a town south of Chicago called Robbins, and it's practically all ghetto, very, very poor suburb. And a federal guy was going to go and tour Robbins. And people are going with trucks and collect junk And there was a vacant lot where you could go and try to sell your junk. So this guy had a truck full of junk. They spread it out to see if anybody wants to pay a couple of bucks for a lamp.
I love that lamp.
Okay, just
Mhm.
kind of going along. This is Alderman Clifford Kelly. He and another good citizen wanted to investigate slum buildings and see if they could do something to try to help slum people out. So this, we're entering a slum building where people actually live. These are bad conditions, obviously. He's looking out the back door, junk and piled up. Garbage people wouldn't even bother to come in there, try to haul out the garbage. So it just piled up. So people come in, there's no other place to go. And sometimes they become crack houses. Sometimes people that come in and steal the copper pipes for recycling value. They didn't take baths because there was no water. Hole in the ceiling. This was a different building, but she's a welfare mother and she kept her kids clean and but they were very unhappy. The taller boy took me into the bathroom. The bathroom linoleum was all torn up and there's a board over the floor. There was a hole in the floor. He picked up the board and it was crawling with cockroaches. He didn't know that it was possible to have so many cockroaches per square inch as that place had. This big. And so this is one of the high rises that Mayor Daley had built several stories tall. This is one of the back doors. And you see the kind of walkways outside all the doors. That's where kids could play. So people could talk and you could fight with people and shoot them. That's where that kind of stuff happened. And I was walking around taking pictures. And this guy came up to me, so a white guy with an armful of cameras. He thought he needed to protect me. So I better walk with you. And I didn't feel like I needed it. I've never been threatened by people with guns except 3 times, and that was by cops. So I never got threatened in the neighborhood. But he was a nice guy, we talked. So this was cleanup day in Henry Horner Homes. So the city passed out soaps and cleaning supplies, and those who had it within them helped clean it up. And so all these people got laundry detergent, the Henry Horner Homes t-shirts, they passed those out. She got a box of dust. So looking over one of those balconies, this is the playground. Another side playground. Now you see, you look at the next block and those houses are intact, look pretty good. So this playground is 2 boys rolling a ball down that ramp while trains rode by. This is another playground. He's playing baseball. This is a better playground. Once a week, the fire department would come in and they spray what is called Operation Splashdown. Kids would come in all over the neighborhood. Scamper. So this is a playground too, a little Chinese kid. This is in Chinatown. Playground can just be the sidewalk outside your store. This is just another pretty face I ran across, put it in. So this is the dedication of the wall that's painted behind them. The artist was Mitchell Catan, just went by Catan. Nice guy. He had 2 gold teeth in the front, except in the centers of the gold teeth, there were white stars. So when he smiled, you couldn't help but look at his mouth. A lot of murals in Chicago. And I've had photos in 2 books about Chicago murals. So she called herself Ma. So she was kind of a hanger-on. What do you got to protest? Hey, I'm a radical, I'll protest with you, no matter what. Just kind of a camp follower, I thought. And the guy on the right was a drummer, taking a minute off, pretty drunk. These were kids at another concert, I just like how enwrapped they look, listening to music outside. This is a methadone clinic. This is Safari House. And you go there and try to kick your drug habit, preparing the methadone for people. These get pretty nitty gritty. So this is inside with a twin lens reflex camera, limited light, hard to focus, take pictures at the same time. And she's one of the drug addicts. Most of these people have been in and out of drug treatment programs, and they're disgusted with themselves. So there was a lot of unhappiness in this room. So I don't know how I got this job, but I did a full-page feature on it, of what drug addiction was like, and how these people tried to deal with it. Look at her hand. The scar on the back of her hand. So if I was shooting up, I wouldn't be that obvious about it for everybody to see. Maybe she used up all the other veins in her body, I don't know. It's better on the screen. So these people talked about how hard it was to quit drugs because all of your friends are drug addicts. You can't go to your friends and say, I got a problem, I'm gonna try to kick the habit. And people say, oh, no, okay. One more time, come on. And so you eventually had to just give up on all your friends to try to get away from it. Happy people disgusted with themselves. So this is a different place. I don't know where it was, why I was there, but I thought it was refreshing after people who were suffering, seeing this little guy turning on light in his life. This is another clinic. This is a Bethany Hospital. You go to this hospital, they give you methadone, and it's a bigger facility. You get a haircut, they give you dental attention. They had recreational things. And so with the medical staff, guy showing off his fluoroscope or whatever it is. Everyone showed me everything. So Model Cities is funded by Chicago. This is a reach out program. He cleared up his drug addiction and he's reaching out to the reach out, talking about how good that program is. And he met this woman who was also in the same program and they linked up, living happily ever after, or they could be dead, who knows? This guy's face looks so in between them. She's faced death and self-destruction. He might have hope, who knows? I'd like to know his story. And this was a kid in that Bethany hospital. I don't know why she was closed up in that particular room. Maybe waiting for a parent to get medical treatment, I don't know, but she doesn't want to be there. Nor does this child in the nursery. So after these kids in bad streets, looking around, I think I went to Sears trying to get pictures for the black newspaper for Christmas. And this little girl was so thrilled to see a black Santa. Oh, so happy. And this guy was buying things for his son. He was so happy that he could get this for his son, something he never had when he was a kid. Just the joy. So this is a whole different event. This is an outdoor concert in Lincoln Park. Kids having fun too. So people didn't read the no trespassing sign. Huh. You can't expect doors like that not to be caved in. Well, this is a duplicate of Al Saladin. So this is the random face of Indianapolis 500. I turned around and took a shot at this guy. These are chess players back in the Hyde Park, Kenwood area. And I see there are 77 neighborhoods designated. I don't know if I said that. So this guy having a quiet moment, playing his guitar up on a fire escape. Same guy, same quiet moment. This guy having a quiet moment too up on another roof, reading. This is a roof that's more distressed. Fireman chopping holes in it because it's on fire. Same fireman, same house. Finishing up. They always break all the windows, of course. So these are kids wondering what's next in their lives. This is another fire. This is a big warehouse on a railroad siding. And often these things, the firemen will just let them burn out as much as they can be, because it's a favor to the people who are going to tear it down. There's less to tear down if much of it's been burned out. So here they finally decide, okay, let's stop the fire. So this is a little series on Chicago's recycling. There's destruction, they tear stuff down and they build new stuff. So here they're building a new building. So you see Mike Rowe's TV show, America's Dirtiest Jobs, things that you don't want to do. This guy building this scaffolding is probably one of those jobs you don't want to do. So this is Green taking this building apart, the one next to it. So the roof is off the one to the right. The one on the left looks to me like what's still there is the mechanism for the elevators. Cables hanging from it. So this is probably one of the dirtiest jobs. The guy on the top is standing on a big caisson. They drilled down to bedrock and filled that caisson, the cylinder full of concrete, several places so they could have a good footing to build a new footing. And they put these rebar in, which are sticking up in the bottom. And the guy to the right has got a oxyacetylene cutting torch. So he's leveling off the tops of the rebar. So guys taking a break, just leaving their tools there for a minute. And there's a guys dropping concrete into the ditch. They're going to spread out the concrete. So this is one of America's dirtiest jobs. They're spreading the concrete amidst the rebar. That's one of my personal faves. So when things are torn down, there's always a guy who comes in to try to save the bricks. You can buy Chicago bricks. They're recycled. They're expensive. They look distressed. They're big. They're very hard. And they've got nodules from the steel mills in Gary, just around the bottom of the lake. So we had a house built in 1890, and some of the foundation was built with those bricks, trying to drill a hole in the wall, and you hit one of these nodules like flint, and it diverges the drill bit. You can't drill a straight hole. Sideways holes, yes. This is another brick cleaner, another location. That's what he does. He's taking down the rest of the wall, knocks the mortar off, and somebody buys it for putting on their fireplace. So this area, buildings on either side of these have been torn down, and the building's gutted, but it's been cleaned up, and I'm guessing somebody's going to buy those and put in some expensive apartments at some point. Straight through our building was torn. Of course, the L tracks. Can you imagine having your apartment right in front of the L tracks? Yeah. People get used to that, you know, rumbling, rattling your windows. What? So this guy was parked. He was near one of those destruction sites. So I went and talked to him, and a nice guy. He didn't mind me taking his picture. I got a couple of I think it was only about 70, he told me. And so she's another face that like this was at a public gathering at a police station to talk about public violence in their neighborhoods. It was an ongoing issue, public violence. So this is the next to the last. These guys just tore down this house, lights coming through. And I was thinking either they're feeling like they've torn it down or they're letting the light in. One of the two, could be either way. This is the last one. So I was in a parking lot going to the hardware store, was outside of a grocery store. These kids came up to me, had a camera on my shoulder. Would you take a picture? Oh, okay, stand over there. So they wanted me to do what I did. There it is. And that's the end of it. Thank you so much. I thought I'd pass a hat, but I forgot the hat. I take Venmo and have to pay. Just give me your account numbers and your social security numbers, your mother's maiden name. I'll take care of the paperwork.
Does anybody have any questions for Ted?
Questions?
Did you send all of your stuff out to be developed, or did you
No, I
do it yourself?
I did all this black and white stuff. I worked for Day Publications at first newspaper in the suburbs. They'd send some photographer out to take pictures with my stories. He'd be later to take the right picture. So I got that Yashica 8 camera, take the right picture. And they take the film, process it. One time only, I barged into the darkroom. They teach me how to do that. Lacey, get out, get out, get out. So I only did that the once. So I learned photography and darkroom techniques from them. I kept expanding. Like I said, after the Yashica, I get a much better twinless reflex. And after trying to tape the light leaks out of the bathroom, so I could try to process film in the bathtub. So what does Beth do? I can't wait any longer. I got to the bathroom. So after I had 3 dark rooms, and that's what I did all the plumbing, electrical work, and air ducts, great sound system. And I almost hated to leave it. But as I got more and more digital, the 8-foot long sink that I made for these huge trays just became a place to stack junk, keep it above the floor. So we sold that house. Do I miss my dark room and kind of working in the gray, the very dark orangish light and getting toxic chemicals over my hands? No, not really. You know, I take these pictures, my computers, fix them up, run them through the inkjet printer. I don't like it, I'll fix it, run it through again. The room lights stay on.
Now, in the Mamiya that you were using, did you have the film packs on the back where you could change them for different lighting, or did you just have one?
No, just, well, I had 2 of them eventually, but those didn't, you couldn't change backs on those. Alan Boyer has one of those film cameras, twinless reflex.
Yeah, because of, what kind of Mamiya did you have?
A D3 with twinless reflex.
Oh, okay, so it was a twin reflex.
Twinless reflex.
Okay, it wasn't like a Hasselblad
No.
style.
Okay, it was not like a Hasselblad. The expensive one.
I have a question. What percentage of the time were people aware that you were taking their picture? Like this one, for sure, they asked to have their picture taken. But what percentage of your pictures are taken where you
I'm sneaky, so maybe 50%.
50-50?
But you know, with 35mm sight, you can be sneaky, longer lenses, shoot and get out. And so no matter photographer, well, you know this, photojournalist, get the shot no matter what. And that has caused some real problems. Shall I go into one of those problems? I did a lot of book jackets, artsy images for book jackets. And one of them was, this was my client, Joe Oliver. Hi, Joe. He was the head designer at the University of Chicago Press. Hey, Joe. And he said, we got to do a book on something, think of some things. So I think about it, a couple of days, do some sketches, go back, said, okay, let's just do that one. So I go back and shoot something and process the film to proof sheets, get it back to him, and oh, okay, print that one. And one was about the penal system. I'll go down to Stateville Penitentiary, downstate Illinois. By Joliet is what, 45 minutes south of Chicago. Next to Joliet, there was a town that had lots of antique stores. So I'll take Beth with me, we'll go for lunch with these kind of antique and cafe stores. So I stop off at Stateville, and it's just a huge opener, nothing but dirt in the penitentiary. And I'm seeing the big guard towers, and there's a tiny sign, which allows me to see that, no trespassing. So you gotta get the shot no matter what. So I pull onto this huge field, close enough to get a shot of one of these guard towers. And the guard wheels around, he's got this huge shotgun. I think they call them street sweepers. That kind of shotgun that shoots 45 caliber pellets. And another cop friend of mine says, don't like to use them. They're so powerful. He's using them. Anyway, this guy's got the shotgun. He said, stop. Okay. So they send a car around with a guy to check us out, searches the fan, confiscates my phone. And I'm deep doo-doo now. And I had a big folding camping knife in the back. It was a van in the back of the front seat, big camping knife. He finds out I got a weapon on this federal property. And but finally we kind of talked it through, and he lets me go.
Wow.
And he said, this is a top security prison. Lori's been there actually.
Yeah.
And so he said, if we see an airplane fly overhead, we shag him out of the sky.
Wow.
So I should have read that tiny sign that said no trespassing. You want to get the shot? Tell me what you did to get the shot.
Was I unhappy?
Did I ruin your day?
We never got to the antique stores. did we?
And that's happened before a few times. She could give a presentation and how many times I've been in trouble for that. And then, yes,
Did you have to get names of everybody you think?
no.
Yeah. That's one of the rules that we changed when I was the chief photographer, was if you don't know the person's name, they don't get published.
That's the way it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
but they'll never know.
When I was at the ice storm, there's a bucket truck up 90 feet in the trees covered up by ice and stuff. And I asked the guy on the ground, I said, you know his name? He said, Derek. I said, you know his last name? No. So he says, hey, Derek, what's your last name? He said, why? He said, Detroit News. He put the bucket down. He wanted to talk to me.
We're famous.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, Ted, there's is it Goody Weiss? Judy. Oh, okay.
Hi, Judy.
Judy said thank you, and then Sue Joe said you are the most talented photographer. So interesting. So Ted, I just have a question. I mean, this is a pretty notable time in the history of our country and in Chicago in particular. At that time, did you understand what you were capturing? You did?
Well, the Mayor Daley thing too, that was complex.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
And the total control that he had.
Yeah. Yep.
Those were amazing.
Thank you.
Were you in Chicago when they had the Democratic
The Democratic, yeah.
and all the stuff that was going on? And did you get pictures?
A couple. Beth took me away to one family. Look, with a sunroof. So we opened up the sunroof and I'd sit in the back of the passenger seat and we try to go in and take pictures of paddy wagons, pulling people away. I didn't take a lot of those, but I got some. Daley was really criticized for how he handled them. And one of the famous things was, he hated those people who were protesting anyway. And he issued the shoot to kill order. Police department, shoot to kill.
Wow.
We had moved in to an apartment in August and the convention was in September. And there were 250,000 people camped in Lincoln Park, 2 blocks from us. It was, and we would be, he'd have me driving around. He'd say, follow that paddy wagon. And his head is sticking out. He's taking pictures of the cops. They're going like this to me.
Oh, my gosh.
You ever stop to think about the changes in the 50 years?
Yeah, and some things are the same. We have to kind of start over.
How much film did you carry with you?
Oh, a load.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Nowadays, you have one of these things and you can put 2,000 frames on here.
Right.
Yeah, and were you talking about lenses? You gotta use prime lenses. Zoom lenses weren't any good back then. You gotta hold that brick, I gotta change lenses or carry 3 cameras.
Right.
Oh, okay, wow.
The slot on my shoulder here is,
I think the new photographers, people get into it nowadays have no idea how easy it is.
no kids these days, you know?
Yeah. And how many lenses did you have with you? You got twin lens reflex. Did you ever switch to 35?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have 4 lenses for my Mamiya C3,
Yeah.
but then I switched to 3. So I've been through at least 12 35mm cameras.
Yeah.
And I use 2 digital cameras still. I prefer those.
When I talk to students, they said, what happens is you're at a football game, it's like the state championship. And you look down at your camera, and you've got 2 frames left. And they're on the 3-yard line, they're gonna win the game, so you gotta reload. And then the only pictures they use are the ones from the finish. You don't use anything during the game, you just shot 9 rolls of film.
Yeah.
Stop it, you're making me cry.
And you don't know which roll's got the final stuff in it, because you've got all the, so you end up doing all 9 rolls looking for 2 frames. I don't know how we did it, but we did.
We did it,
We did it.
had to.
Yeah.
Well, I see guys, oh, you too, you had a huge bag full of stuff and a couple of flashes and big rechargeable batteries. And I see people at press conferences today, all the stuff around, not as much as we did. And, well, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
You have big lenses.
Big lenses. And I shot a lot of murals for a couple of mural books. One was Chicago murals, NPA murals, a lot of big murals in Chicago. So, and some of them are hardly accessible. I have to get to a place and drag, and they wanted a 4x5 camera with big bellows, and drag that big box and flash a 2,400 watt second flash, huge flash generator. And get in, the mural would be so high, I had to get a ladder. And I'd be 15 feet in the air on this ladder, wobbling back and forth, up and down, trying to adjust my lights. Oh, what we went through, John,
What's that?
what we went through.
Yeah.
And do they appreciate it? No.
Well, the other thing, when I started, the same with you probably, the reporter would have a big byline saying, you know, by Todd Smith. The photographer had no byline. And I started saying, you know, that's a page 1 story, that he wouldn't have had the story without the picture.
Well, they gave me a lot of credit line, almost every day I had a photo by Ted Lacey.
Then it would say Record Eagle / photo by, and obviously it's a photo. That's redundant.
They put on the back page, photos by John Jablonski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't know.
And if it says special to or courteous of, it's something they didn't pay for, or you're a freelancer, you know. But they're very good about it. The Detroit News, if you shoot something for them, they pay you for it. And then you get a week, this happened just recently with the London Sunday Times, a picture that we published 2 years ago. They wanted the picture, and they saw it in the Detroit News on their website. And they said, well, it's John's picture. We don't mind if you call him.
Hmm.
And they pay a lot better.
That's fun, we can resell the same photo over and over.
That's why.
Well, the legal aspect of a picture is if you shoot a picture with my phone, that picture's yours. It's copyrighted automatically because your finger was on the button. It doesn't matter if it's my phone.
Theoretically.
Yeah, so, you know, you could get into some legal hassle, but be in a good mood when you leave the newspaper.
Did either of you face a dilemma where instead of taking the picture, you put your camera down and you intervened with,
You don't put your camera down.
never?
No.
What if you
I
need
have
both
dreams of
hands?
setting my camera down in an airport. I didn't get my camera to come back and press it's gone.
Yeah.
Panic dreams, you know, you
The
can.
only person I've ever seen that is where, right now the Record Eagle has their sports reporters take the pictures.
Yeah, it drives me nuts.
And well, it drives me nuts because there's a very expensive camera that he sits down of where the kids all play around and he's off chatting and doing things, and here sits a very expensive camera.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
They
there's,
wanted to steal
I've
stuff
been
around
very
here.
tempted, but I'm too honest, I didn't do it.
what about the situation where the man is about to put himself on fire? Do you take the picture or do you take away the match?
That's a tough question.
Take
You
a
know,
picture
it's a good question.
Yeah.
Like,
Just,
what point as a human being do you step in and forget your craft, or if
Did you
you,
see the movie Medium Cool,
yeah,
where there's a scene in a car crash? And there's a guy dying and all stretched out, and two, a photographer and a newspaper and a writer come up, hey, the crash. So they take pictures of this and they're talking about what they're gonna do over the weekend. And the same guy's gagging is in the street. It's kind of a nonchalance of the reporting people of it. So they didn't do anything.
you also have to remember, it's a different time. If you go back to the Vietnam War, when the monks were setting themselves on
Yeah.
fire in Saigon, who was taking the pictures?
Mhm.
That was a Time magazine front photo. Remember?
In my car,
Mhm.
while traveling, I carried safety flares, a fire extinguisher, blankets, some towels, some water. And now I carry an Narcan,
oh, yeah.
this drug thing. If I get waved over and somebody's drug overdosed, I can probably help them. About once a year, I go through you know, how to use the machines to save somebody's life when their heart stops.
You had a snake bite kit?
Yeah,
Snake bite kit? You
Yeah.
never know.
yeah. My brother's an attorney. He says, boy, you're getting, I said, I don't care. If it's a human life involved, I'm gonna help them.
Right.
You know, I've had blood on my hands a few times, but that's the human part of you, you know?
The ethics of being a photojournalist is tricky, and you have to know clearly what your beliefs are and what you'll do and what you won't do, and if taking a picture is gonna destroy someone's life, reputation,
It's hard to stop and think about it at the time, though.
yeah.
I had an editor
You can
that I
always take
didn't
the
trust.
picture and then figure it out later.
Yeah. I had an editor I didn't trust because he had connections where he could find out from a license plate who owned the car. I'm coming back from Gaylord in a snowstorm. Somebody in a pickup truck passed a snowplow up on 131 towards Barcelona and hit a car head on. Newlyweds.
Oh,
The woman was killed instantly. This guy was banged up pretty good. So, you know, I just come across this, the ambulances and everybody was still getting there. And I introduced myself, well, actually the cop knew who I was. He said, I can't let you in there. And I said, well, my editor's gonna ask why I didn't get anything. They already covered up the deceased person with a sheet. That's indicated right there. He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll trust you once. I did not take a picture of anything showing the sheet or the license plate. And a couple of days later, I went back to the state police post. I wanted to thank the guy for treating me that way. And he said, well, he was 2 days off probation.
oh.
He was brand new at this. I said, well, he did it well. And I said, I appreciate it being treated professionally.
Yeah.
You're talking about developing film. I did all my black and white, but color I used to take to a lab. And I had accounts with 3 different custom labs in Chicago. And you could drop film off at night, pick it up the next morning. Proof sheets and everything.
Yeah.
And Kodachrome had to be sent out, different kind of film.
Yeah.
But I lived 2 miles from the Kodachrome plant. So I could drop Kodachrome off and get it back. It took them 2 days.
It helped when you said that you're doing it for a newspaper.
No, everybody
They
did.
didn't care.
No,
They just want to know, did you have the money to pay for it?
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, in the newspaper business, when we switched from black and white to color, that was a big deal because we were just getting into computers. And we had scanners and things, and we had to send our film out. You know, we had a major fire down above Kilwins, and I had to take my film to Myers. But they knew who I was, so they developed the film. And then we switched from doing our own film to digital. And for some reason, the color developing machine in our basement stopped working one night. I don't know why, but we had thousands of dollars worth of Nikon digital stuff, and my editor saying, let's not use anything yet. So the first night when the machine serendipitously managed to die, we used the first, digital picture, and it was fine. It sure was easier than sniffing chemicals.
Well, talking about printing pictures in newspaper, the first newspaper I worked for from 68 for 5 years. in the office, it'd be a couple of dozen people, and you come after copying something and hit it, Lacey, what's the lead? What's the lead? I'd come up with a lead sentence. And you start to type it, try to do a paragraph. He comes, rips it out of your typer, big office, Royal McBee. And so you keep typing and he comes, rips out a couple more paragraphs, pastes it, edits them ready to be printed. And pastes them all together so you could have a pasty going to the printer about that big. And so we had freed machine operators, women who were moonlighting. We worked from 4 to midnight and they typed these yellow perforated tapes and that's what would go to the printer. And the printer switched to computer system and then these huge rooms with computers. And you couldn't walk in there with shoes on. It was such that thick carpeting and they had to have air conditioners and it'd be just perfect temperature. And for a daily paper, you didn't come out with the morning's newspaper. That was a problem.
You know, the other problem with the newspapers, when they switched to a 35 millimeter color, we had to buy our own equipment. And I said, well, why are we doing that? You know, the reporters have, you paid for their typewriters. Why are we spending just, well, my first Nikon was $400. That was a top of the line Nikon. You can't buy a strobe for that. And I finally got that changed. And then you get a pool lenses, you know, the large things for sports and stuff. But it was a real uphill battle because they're looking at the bottom line only.
The second paper I worked for were those huge Heidelberg presses. Did you say the newspapers getting spit down ramps? Huge thing, and they had to have forklifts to pick up these enormous rolls of paper. Newsprint paper that were about this big. In that place, it was getting on in years, so they had a lead typesetting. They had these clackety-clack linotype machines. And when I got interested in the steel drum music, the guy who was talking about that was from Trinidad, he's an art student, and he showed me his linotype machine, clackety-clack, and it was about 6 feet tall, and you type it with a huge typewriter, and it would spit out brass blanks. You have a whole line of brass blanks, and then you pour molten lead into that, and then they'd have compositors who put all of that lead type into big frames, and that's what got printed. So those compositors work a big table, they work upside down and backwards. And there was a huge vat of molten lead, which you had to inhale.
We had all of our newsprint, the big rolls, like you mentioned, were stored on the big building right on Cass Road when you go past it by the golf course. You just get off the straightaway and go up around the corner. There's a big plant right there. And all of our newsprints printed in there. And I'm playing tennis one night and I hear all these sirens thinking, what is that? Turn the scanner on in my car. Kellogg's is on fire. It's full of our newsprint. It was a nice fire.
Oh, wow.
So we couldn't publish the newspaper.
Oh,
So
my.
the editor called the Kellogg Evening News. They bought up like 6 rolls on a truck. We could publish the paper.
Wow,
But that stuff burned for about a week, you know,
wow.
pretty amazing. So I go back in the office and the other photographer's in there and he's arguing with the editor about, we need to find some way to figure out about this stuff. And I wasn't gonna interrupt him. I had a whole handful of film from this fire. He finally came in the dark room and said, where were you? And I said, well, there was a fire over here. He said, that's what we were yelling about. I said, well, I have pictures if you want. Because we're all competitive, weren't we?
Oh, yeah.
We want to get the picture.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, very.
I just have an experience that I'd like to share, and it kind of goes to, ethics, what do you publish? I was camping on South Manitou one time with my daughter and her boyfriend at the time, and the day we were supposed to leave, our boat got held up. We couldn't go, so they kind of had us back behind a barn. But evidently a woman who was scuba diving on the boat rack out there had drowned. And so a helicopter came in, and I'm kind of by the corner of this building, and it's back in the film day. So I took some pictures, not knowing what was going on. And I got all the emergency personnel around the helicopter that's on the dock, and couldn't see the body being put on or whatever, but So I got back, I called John and I go, I don't know what to do with this. You know, I found out that the person had drowned. And he said, just, you know, come on in to the Record Eagle. So I went in, they developed 2 rolls of film for me to get the picture. And, you know, I never felt comfortable about it. It got printed on the front page, but then the reporter was asked me, you know, what happened? I go, I'll give you a picture, but I'm not talking about this. And but it took me a long time to get over how I felt about having that picture printed.
When I retired, for probably 4 months, I'd wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, thinking about something I'd witnessed. Because you gotta look so you don't photograph it too, so you can see everything. And I finally asked my doctor, I said, am I going nuts? He said, no, you're taking that wall down. He said, when you're in there as a professional photographer and you're working with that, you have a brick there and it's gonna block you off from all that emotion. That comes flooding back.
One time I was sitting at my desk in the Chicago Daily Defender, and there was rubble next door from where a building had been taken down. And I had my camera in my desk, Lacey, look what's going on. And the cops were dragging away the body of a girl who had been kidnapped and raped and killed. The cops are dragging her out of this building. So things like that, they had her all covered up by the time I got there to get the pictures. Things like that do bother you.
Yeah, well, I always tell students, I said, you know, when you're working, you take part of that with you, whether it's something really terrible or something really beautiful.
Used to be able to sell photos, things that happened, you could sell photos, papers would buy them from you. But now, nobody's got budgets to pay for anything, and there are a dozen people, they're taking cell phone photos already anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a problem with book publishers, they don't have budgets to pay for things.
Yeah.
And there's so many online free photos anyway, so a designer can grab something off the internet free and slam bam, thank you.
Yeah.
It's done, rather than wait for a couple of days for somebody like me to come up with something.
Yeah.
Business has changed, I'm glad I'm out.
Probably
Other-
2003, 2004.
Yeah, just before I retired.
Before my visit.
Other questions, other comments? Sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you ever write any articles since you have an English degree and take these?
Oh, every day, yeah. When I do those photo pages with my photos, yeah, I'd write whole stories. Every day, almost, I had bylines. So I was a writer in college, English, BA, in graduate school. And but can I write? Well, I won first place in a humanities week writing contest, a poetry contest. So first place, okay, I could write. And I liked writing papers. So that's my first love. Yeah, I was first a writer before I was a photographer. So the visual thing kind of crept in.
Do you think this body of work represents you as a photographer more than any other?
No, well, I'm totally different now. It's like I said, these are fragments from the bottom of the bottom drawer.
Yeah.
And now everything's color. Before, you charge people different prices. You want black and white, you want color, you charge them more for color. And you'd have a flash meter or a light meter that costs several $100. You gotta make your exposure just right, especially for slides, gotta be totally accurate.
You were in your 20s when you took all these photos.
That's 68 to
Just a few years
70.
ago,
I think
just a few years ago.
a slip of a lad.
Only a minute.
It's so totally different now. And so everything's, you can change to black and white. But gotta decide how to break, well, you didn't raise a hand, you just.
Well, Deb, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol.
Yes, thank
Well
Thank you
done.
so much.
Totally different.